All right, everyone, let's get the show started. Welcome to our DevOps office hours. It's December 23rd, 2020. My name is Eric Osterman, and I'll be leading the conversation. I'm the founder and CEO of Cloud Posse. We're a DevOps accelerator, and that means that we help companies own their infrastructure in record time by building it together with your teams and then showing them the ropes. If that sounds interesting, head over to cloudposse.com/quiz to get started. Again, that's cloudposse.com/quiz to get started. For those of you new to the call, the format is very informal. My goal is to get your questions answered. So feel free to unmute yourself at any time if you want to jump in and participate. If you're tuning in from our podcast or YouTube channel, you can register for these live and interactive sessions by going to cloudposse.com/officehours. We host these calls every week, even now, Christmas time. And we'll automatically post a video recording of this session to the Office Hours channel so you can share it with your team. So with that said, let's kick this off. I'm expecting fewer people today just because of the holiday season. We also had a couple different types of segments the last couple weeks here. We had Cloudsmith 2 weeks ago. Last week we had Scalar, Spacelift, N0, Terraform Cloud present on what that was about. If you haven't checked out those videos, it's really cool to see the platforms available to collaborate on Terraform in a better way. So check that out. Andy, we should probably share a link to those again here just for anybody tuning in that wants to catch up on that.
Sure.
So, unfortunately, we weren't able to capitalize on all the amazing announcements that came out of AWS during reInvent week. And I thought we could maybe cover some of those if anybody here has some interesting announcements that they would like to bring up. The two that really stood out to me are the AWS Cloud Shell. And while that's not that amazing, you could very easily just spin up a Bastion host somewhere or use an AWS workspace. What is nice about it is like in maybe some more like enterprisey environments where you can't install anything on your on your laptop to get stuff done. Well, this is kind of nice. And if you just need to quickly be able to get to some things, but you're on a machine that doesn't have all those tools, that's that this Cloud Shell is pretty nice. What I like about it is it validates something that we've been doing for the last 5 years, and that is geodesic. So geodesic is our, like, I used to call it a cloud automation shell, but honestly, I think it's misleading. What it is really a Linux distro that piggybacks on a couple mainstream distros, including Alpine Linux, CentOS, and Debian. And we distribute our entire DevOps toolchain in Cloud Posse packages via geodesic. So if you go to github.com/cloudposse/packages, you'll see what our tool chain is, and we distribute these all these tools via the popular repositories out there, and they're updated every single day. So we always have the latest tools available. You don't need to go search for it by going to GitHub or something like that. So geodesic, all that's doing is it's a glorified fancy Docker image that has our Alpine or Debian repositories already pre-configured, and then some other things like a fancy prompt, autocomplete prompts already set up, things like that. So why this is cool is you take the AWS Cloud Shell and you have your profile automatically download and pull geodesic for your company or for your org, and now you automatically have your tools installed there. So it's a way to distribute a consistent tool chain that works in Amazon Cloud Shell, that works on your laptop, that runs as part of maybe your Spacelift workers or your Atlantis jobs, or runs in your pipelines via GitHub Actions, or runs in CodeFresh pipelines. Basically, geodesic is this base container that you would use for every one of those situations. Does that make sense? Any questions on that?
Yeah, quick question. I just pulled it up and maybe I searched it a little too fast. Do you guys also load up the IAM Authenticator? Like, uh,
Yeah, yeah. So we have a few utilities pre-installed in it. I think. Obviously, we do a lot of AWS. So it has a lot of AWS
yeah.
centric tools. So one of the things we have is like SAML to AWS. We also have the new. I believe we have the new AWS Cloud V2 in there, and we also have like AWS Vault, and AWS Vault works with AWS SSO as well and provides a better experience. Plus, it works with other kinds of authentication mechanisms with AWS, as in the AWS Authenticator, like that you would use with
AKS?
Kubernetes, for example,
Yeah.
too. Yeah, yeah, we have that as well.
Oh, cool. Yeah, I did not know you guys had this. I started creating something of my own about 2 months ago. Now I'm thinking I should delete my repo and just this. So no,
Well,
I,
we really want to convey the pattern, and there's no harm in having your own repo, but you can just augment it using our package repository, for example. Um,
yeah, but I mean to be quite frank, you guys are maintaining this, so
yeah, we are.
I'd rather just submit a PR and help out versus maintaining my own fork, right? So
Exactly.
that's awesome.
Yeah, so please do
Um,
check it out, see how it
Actually,
works.
I have one question around it. One thing I've noticed with mine, my repo, I guess my version of this, I obviously only have like three things in it compared to the full tool chain that you guys have have already created. But I found that at some point on my Docker desktop, it'll kind of just stop responding. Like the shell will stop responding, and
Yeah.
I have not dug in deep on it. I just kind of take it for what it is, just restart it. It's a container. It's not that big of a deal. But I wasn't sure if you guys are having the same problem with what you've built.
There was just, yeah, it's a good question. The reason why I laugh is it was just brought up in our internal Slack. I don't have it handy here.
Oh, okay.
So I haven't looked into the problem yet. I haven't been personally affected by it yet, but I'm not discounting the fact that this might be happening.
It's not that big of a deal because it's stateless, and I just
Yeah, no, so and you're on a Mac, I think.
yeah,
Yes,
yeah.
yeah. So
I updated to Big Sur. I'm not sure if it's because of that or
yeah, so I
no
think it's
comparison.
related to it actually. And there's
Okay.
now a notification that happens when, well, okay, you might not be using it the way we're using. So a couple of things with Geodesic. So Geodesic is first and foremost just a Docker image with tools installed, right?
Yeah.
How you use it, however you want. One of the things that we do though is like if you just run the image and you don't pass any arguments, it outputs a shell script. So we call this the Docker bash pattern, like the curl bash pattern. And in the Docker bash pattern, you then pipe that into bash and then it installs a little wrapper script. So all we have to do is type one command and it drops us into a shell. So geodesic feels like a program. It feels like anything installed on the Mac. Now, as part of that, one of the things we do is we bind mount your home folder
Mhm.
into the container so that you can more or less do things just like you were doing. And that is a special case now in Big Sur. So there's a warning that pops up in Docker for Mac now that says, hey, heads up, you're mounting your home directory, things are going to be slow. And that did not used to be the case. Well, okay, let's take a step back in the history of Docker for Mac on a couple generations. Before that, it was Docker Machine, and Docker Machine did some tricks with NFS mounting, and it was pretty slow. Then Docker for Mac came out, and they made some amazing performance improvements so that it felt more or less native working with Docker for Mac, bind mounting home directories. And now that's not happening anymore. And I'm just going to surmise what that could be. It could be things happening in Big Sur that preclude it from a security perspective. It could be that it was acquired by Mirantis and they're just not investing as much into it anymore, or they don't have the ability to fix these things. I don't know. I'm just guessing.
Yeah.
Anybody else experience this problem? Know anything about it? Yeah. So
Yeah, what you're saying makes sense. I didn't really think about, I mean, I am mounting my AWS credentials on my current Docker image. And so obviously you guys are doing the whole home folder, which is probably better. So versus what I like,
it
um,
depends. It's just like when you want to start developing inside of it, and if you have to exit and rebuild the container, it's really awkward. So what we do is we mount your home directory to slash localhost, and now you can do anything you were doing. Like so, you can keep using your IDE to develop, and
yeah.
you could be in your container, and it's just working consistently.
Yeah, no, that's awesome. Yeah, I'm definitely gonna check this out today. Really appreciate you bringing it up. Thank you.
Yeah, sure thing. One other thing to point out is like it's taken us 579 pull requests to figure out this simple concept. So uh, yeah, some things aren't as obvious as I'd like them to be. All right. Any other questions on Cloud Shell or geodesic or packages?
I'm sorry. You're able to run geosec within Cloud Shell, correct?
Yep, exactly.
Okay,
So
awesome.
Cloud Shell lets you sudo, and then as sudo, you can install Docker and run Docker commands on there. So you would still need to go through the standard bootstrapping process, on a new shell. But since you're pulling in an image, it should be less effort.
Cool.
Yeah. Uh, all right. Any other questions on Cloud Shell or geodesic? All right, so then there's another announcement that has been requested by popular demand in AWS. Uh, I liked some other suggestions on how they would implement fault injection. Like, I think it would have been really cool if they had like a AWS chaos region. You could have 3 zones in there with different levels of chaos or something, and then you wouldn't have to change anything, but just redeploy in a different region. This was not implemented that way. There is some APIs you can use to simulate degradation of for specific things like latencies on databases, network connectivity, things happening to instances. I'm sure they're going to expand the kinds of things you can disrupt, but this is cool because it wasn't easy to really simulate proper disruptions in AWS. Haven't yet looked at it. I don't know if anybody else here has yet. Brand new service. So, yeah.
Hey, Eric, to
Yeah.
your point, this is Michael. The
Michael.
actual the region is probably going to be coming up next year at reInvent.
Oh, you think so?
Yeah,
Okay.
I have some inside knowledge. They're trying to still create it right now.
Okay. Okay.
Yeah,
Well, that would be pretty awesome if that's what they're gonna do.
it'll
Uh,
probably be preview at reInvent next year, and then probably go live sometime in the spring 2022.
okay. That would be that would be awesome.
Yeah.
So let's see here. Next announcement. Okay, so then just because there's just too much here, and I actually myself haven't been able to look at it. There was just so much announced. The anywhere stuff is kind of cool. So you can bring ECS or EKS on-prem in more classic enterprise environments. Proton we briefly talked about. It's interesting. There's just diminishing returns when Amazon has announced so many products similar to this. OpsWorks being the one that comes to mind, and CloudFormation, and then like, okay, so what is Proton? How's Proton finally solving this? I took a quick look at it. Looked like they were taking a nice approach, but I want to see it work for all the tools that we're using today. And the pull request, not pull request, feature request number one, Terraform support. Pretty funny. Um, let's see, storage announcements, database announcements, more local zones. The whole suite of SageMaker things is out of control right now. I don't know if anybody's using that. There's just too many services now underneath that. I can't keep it straight. Any other, Michael? You were listening to every one of these. What else were you really excited about?
The machine learning for us for the healthcare space is pretty cool. They're just, trying to absorb it all is a nightmare. It seems
Yeah,
like over especially 3 weeks. But yeah, there's a lot of new stuff coming out, especially on the AI, ML kind of, product line that they have. A lot more integrations.
yeah,
You don't have to go build it yourself.
yeah. One-stop shop. All right. So those were some of the announcements there. Um, just wanted to give another update that we have open sourced the full catalog now of every managed rule that Amazon offers for CIS. And this is a pretty novel approach that we have pioneered now for Terraform. So let's look at Cloud Trails, for example. So these are the rules that are managed by AWS that we have then defined in a custom YAML format here that allows us to distribute catalogs of these alerts. And these can be expanded as time goes on. These can include custom lambdas as well for config checks. And because we tag each one of these, you're able to, in our config module, select which ones you want to enable by tag. We also have a opinionated implementation of CIS. So if you go to module CIS, here's an example of how to implement a module that implements all the CIS rules for AWS config. And that's all open source now.
Hey guys, Patrick here. I just wanted to say I took a deep dive into that module and it's pretty sweet.
Appreciate it. Thank you, Patrick.
Yeah, no, when you guys came out with that YAML module, I was like, I don't know how many use cases this would be used for. And then you guys released that. I'm like, this is a perfect use case for that YAML module, would be like config rules. Yeah,
you can pull our config rules. You can pull your config rules. Here's the thing about YAML is that Terraform supports HTTP calls for text only. So you can pull text files from some source and then YAML decode it, JSON decode it, do whatever. You can't do that with var files. So this is a great distribution model for public modules to be able to centralize catalogs of this stuff. And I like that. All right. And we're using that same pattern now for Datadog, for OpsGenie, SCP, so service control policies, and I think it's going to be foundational to what we do. So let's see here. Just another update. Like we've been investing heavily internally on just improving our ability to manage so many repos. The most recent thing we've done is added support for Mergify, Mergify and RenovateBot. So looks like we do have one bug left. These should be getting automatically tested, and if the test passed, merged. Jeremy is on vacation, unfortunately. He's working on it, so I guess this is going to wait until first week of January. But what's cool about this is, first thing we had to do was update all of our modules to use the new registry notation. Now, this is not new. It's been around for over a year. We've just been slow adopters to this. It kind of felt like we were putting the Terraform registry in the critical path unnecessarily. But I think the trajectory of the entire community has been to move to the registry format. And it does open some nice things because you can use semver expressions to specify what kind of versions you want to have. Now, we are all pre 1.0, so using semver expressions would really only gain you the ability to get patch releases, since we always bump the major version for our releases here. Or sorry, the minor version, I said the wrong word. The nice thing about this is we're updating all of our modules now every day to pull in the latest modules. So we recently had a bug fix in Terraform null label with a patch release here, and that will be progressively getting rolled out to all of our modules as we roll out RenovateBot, as we roll out Mergify everywhere for that. It's also a master class in how to use Mergify and how to use RenovateBot. So if you go into one of our modules, you'll find a Mergify YAML with pretty advanced rules for the conditions on when to automatically merge. Like our bats tests need to pass, our README needs to be regenerated, our Terra tests need to pass. Only do it on merges to master. Only for auto update branches that haven't been approved by one person. And nobody requested changes, and there are no other comments on it, and the user was the Cloud Posse bot. So that's pretty. We're trying to be very select about when we auto merge, and only under these precise conditions. And then Renovate Bot. Renovate Bot is actually pretty pleasant. Now, if you're using GitHub, you're asking like, wait, why aren't you using Dependabot? It was acquired by GitHub and integrated into GitHub. Still doesn't support HCL2, and yeah, so it's at this rate, it's a couple of years behind. And Renovate is actually pretty sweet. It does a lot more than we would get with Dependabot. Off the top of my head, I forget. It does provider updates and it does module updates, but it only works with the registry notation or a kind of version with the Git notation, but if you don't specify tags, and we do specify tags, so it wouldn't work with us. So that's why we're switching. So we are, yeah, so here's how we're auto updating everything with Renovate Bot. The other thing we do is we have now a GitHub action, which is automatically updating the context file every single night in all of our repos. So when we update our null label, updates everywhere in every one of our modules. So we need to, if we need to make bug fixes to our interface on every one of our modules, that's syndicated now, and nobody else is doing this. So I think I'm pretty excited about that. Any questions on this piece?
I was looking up Mergify. It looks pretty cool. Any recommendations for a Bitbucket user?
Yeah. So well, does Mergify only support Bitbucket? No, sorry, GitHub.
Yeah, it looks like it only supports GitHub. Yeah, I mean, I feel like the simple solution is to just switch over to GitHub, but
that is, yeah, that's my snooty answer is that you know.
That's what I did last month.
I'll be honest, like Cloud Posse, this is one of our like red flags. If a customer is on GitLab or Bitbucket, there's other. It's indicative of other problems.
We'll have to get my team to join this and then bring up the GitHub versus Bitbucket discussion here. And
yeah,
maybe love you folks.
I want to like it. I want to use it. We're an Atlassian company. We use OpsGenie. We use Jira. I like this, you know, the tight integration you get, but it's almost a contrarian position to be using anything but GitHub. And it's like when you're optimizing based on requirements, optimizing based on reality. And the reality is everybody uses GitHub. All the tools work for it. You're pigeonholing yourself by using these things. Features come first for all the other platforms, and then they come to Bitbucket or GitLab or these other things. So,
yeah.
But I'm preaching through the choir. Sounds like you're personally would prefer to use GitHub.
Yeah. You got to pick and choose your battles. But yeah, just curious, for it asked in case you knew of a alternative. But I appreciate bringing up these tools.
Yeah, I don't. No, anybody else on the call have any suggestions for Bitbucket for automatic dependency updates and management? Maybe there's some commercial products that do it. Yeah.
Yeah, at that point I'll just switch. But yeah, one of these days.
Yeah, that's what we did. It's not that bad.
Yeah, we've driven that change as well, and customers haven't looked back. So
yeah,
you know, there was something to be said when GitHub was kind of stagnating and just not innovating. The product hadn't changed at all. There were things that were coming out from the other players, like Bamboo, and then GitLab introduced their CI/CD systems. Now GitHub has a public roadmap that gets me very excited. I've been checking this out a lot lately. One feature here, for example, for GitHub that I'm really excited about is centrally managed workflow templates. I think that might have some good potential.
I thought so I'm not familiar with the workflow templates, but I know they do like GitHub repo templates. I think you guys are leveraging that. And I was like, oh, this is like so nice. Bitbucket does not have that.
Yeah, and they have the concept of, let's see, if I go to actions, they do have the concept of like workflow templates, but it's not scalable. Like we have this. We were just playing around with it here. So you can centralize them by sticking them into your GitHub community health repo. So there's this little known repo that you can have called a .github repository, and in that .github repository you can have shared. Oops, that's the wrong thing. Oh, I guess it is this one here. You can have your shared like templates for. This was still not actually what I wanted. Maybe we didn't. We actually didn't do it. You can put your community health files here, like your pull request template, your issue template in here. You can also put workflows in here that you can then come over here or wherever I was here and set up this workflow, or set up one of these existing workflows there. But the problem is just committing it into your repo. So now it's like a factory of technical debt in your organization, and that doesn't solve anything for us. So I truly want to be able to centralize things and have them be centralized and not just copied everywhere. If I'm reading into this the way I want to see it, that is what centrally managed workflow templates will do.
Cool. And I don't mean to digress this conversation too much. I was just one last question around, since we're on GitHub. Do you folks use any like cloud-based so I use Codacy. I don't know if you're familiar with that. It's like it does like cloud-based linting, looks for all like code complexity, like issues in your code, like if you've done it, a bad Java exception, things like that. Do you guys use
It's a good thing to have. It's a good thing to do. I can't say that we have solved that. The degree to which we're doing it, I can bring up two examples, but they're naive in comparison. One is we're using the GitHub superlinter, which basically they've taken every linting tool known to mankind and stuck it in one action. So you can call one action to lint everything. For better or worse, there's a bit of pain to start adopting it up front. We're using another one for like really important thing. Like, do you guys use code owners?
No, I came across code owners recently. I think off.
Oh, you're on Bam. Sorry, yeah, you're on Bitbucket, so it doesn't matter. Maybe
I heard about code owners though, and I've thought about like when we submit a PR. I mean, Bitbucket does some intelligent stuff where it's like you want to add these people, but with code owners, what I saw at the GitHub Universe or whatever the conference was, it's like, all right, that looks pretty cool.
It's necessary for larger organizations to manage code pull requests, because not everyone is a subject matter expert at the entire tree. And there are things that need to be protected. So we are using this to manage our stuff in our public organization here, and so making sure that some contributor has approved every pull request, unless it's modifying makefiles. Wait, that's out of bounds for the contributors. This needs to be our engineering team that sees that that's doing making those changes, or changing any of our workflows. That needs to be our engineering team that checks that what's happening there. So the problem with code owners, you bungle one thing here, and the entire file is just discarded and ignored. And it's not obvious when that happens. So what we had to do was, let's see here. So we had to add a GitHub workflow to validate code owners. So we don't merge any pull request unless the code owners is working. And then the last thing, that this is a work in progress, but you might have heard of Chekhov, which is a static analysis for Terraform code, maybe other things for security. Well, Bridgecrew is the company behind it. Bridgecrew offers a compliance scanning as a service for infrastructure code, maybe other things now. We are rolling this out with Cloud Posse's repos starting Q1 next year. We've already started doing it, some experiments with it, but that would be another thing in like the shift left security category.
Cool. I guess one last one, if you don't mind. Supply
Yeah.
chain, given that's a hot one because it's
Whew.
Solarwinds.
On my list here. Yeah, yeah,
Perfect.
yeah. Perfect segue. So, well, let's talk about that question. But let's introduce this, and then let's talk about your whole thing here, because that is something I want to talk about. So, for those of you who haven't heard, SolarWinds was hacked probably back in March of this year. It was a sophisticated attack, a supply chain attack. They weren't hacked because they were that exciting. They were hacked because of who uses SolarWinds. And basically, every major government agency in the U.S. seems like had been a customer of SolarWinds. If you haven't heard of SolarWinds, maybe you've heard of Pingdom. Pingdom was actually acquired by SolarWinds, and they have some on-prem products for internal scanning and monitoring that are pretty popular, I guess. So in this supply chain attack, what happened was the auto updater process was hacked, probably somewhere in the release pipeline process. I didn't look too closely at the details. And all the companies were doing the best practices. Hey, auto updating, right? Making sure we don't have any vulnerabilities, except for in this case, they were auto updating to a vulnerability, to the latest patch release of a vulnerability. And this is the brave new world that we live in. This is endemic of Docker and every language out there. Node.js and NPM modules have recently come under attack. This has happened in the Ruby ecosystem, in the Python ecosystem. It's happening everywhere, supply chain attacks.
Hey, Eric,
Um,
can I
yeah,
make a comment on that? This is
please.
Phil.
Hey, Phil.
Hi. So they were approached, I think, right at the end of last year by some other security company who had identified a vulnerability, and I guess,
Something fire, right? I forget.
yeah. So, but they're not. So I think part of where, for them to look at and everyone is they weren't very humble. They weren't humble about anything. They were like, yeah, we know what we're doing. We are very smart, to use a Reddit meme. So it's just something to keep in mind. There's a lot of moving parts, a lot of complexity, mistakes happen. Humility would be a good thing, a good
I
attitude to
agree.
cultivate when you work in this area.
Totally, totally. Good advice. Yeah.
Okay.
You're a lot more sympathetic if you admit to these faults, but if you're playing it down, no, you're not winning any favors there. And this is, I want to say, this is my nightmare. We are a prime candidate for this, and this is something that we are addressing as we speak to try and improve some of these things. But it's scary. Anything else you want to add to that, Phil?
No, that's all. Thank you. Thanks for the presentation so far. It's brilliant.
Thank you, thank you. So yeah, that is a problem. This is like a lesson in maybe not how to handle something that is the equivalent of a nuclear bomb for your business. So anyways, yeah, they were hacked. This supply chain attack meant that these vulnerabilities were distributed into all these organizations, and it is believed, or fingers are pointing to, what is that? Some Crazy Bear, which is the code name or team responsible for cyber espionage under Russia. But I don't know if it's been 100% confirmed yet. So, supply chain attacks. Venkata, what
So
was your question?
yeah, so I guess it sounds like you guys are well aware you guys could be a target.
Totally.
Which is good and bad. You guys at least know it. And but what are you guys doing? Like how are you guys tackling the problem? Like I know I spoke to Sonatype makers in Nexus, if I'm saying their name correctly. They've got like their own supply chain scanning software. I think there's a number of tools out there for GitHub.
Yeah.
I think there's
Yeah.
a number of tools out there.
Yeah.
As you know, obviously you folks are dealing, I mean, I don't know what your internal systems are like, but you definitely deal with a number of customers that have a polyglot ecosystem from .NET, Java, Ruby,
Yeah.
Python, all that fun stuff. And then, picking on Python, because I know that probably the best is if you do a requirements.txt and just have the core library that you need, and then that pulls in a bunch of other dependencies that are upstream, then it's
Yeah,
it
yeah.
goes down this rabbit hole. And I
I
think that's,
yeah.
have you in your research that you guys have looked at internally, have you found any compelling tools that you'd recommend, even if you haven't used them yet?
Yeah, no, it's a good question. So I want to be straightforward that I don't think we have, a very mature approach to this as a result of being a young company and having grown very quickly here.
I mean, I've
Uh,
seen publicly traded companies without this, so
Right, right. So I think like with all things in security, it's a multi-pronged approach. Sometimes considered layers. So I think the first layer is internally making sure that everyone in our organization is who we think they are by requiring MFA. That's a low-hanging fruit, quick win. Two, the augmentation of this would be requiring signed commits, and we haven't done that. So knowing where those commits are coming from would be another layer of protection. And then moving on from that, it's the code owners thing, making sure that people that we trust are, we protect master branches so things don't get in there randomly. So these are all protecting like the source of truth, which is GitHub. And there's a lot of controls there around security teams and pull request approvals and checks. All right, that's the easy part. What do you do? What are we doing about the distribution mechanisms? So then what we have is like our package repository for distributing these RPM packages that we have, and Debian and Alpine packages. There are our Terraform modules, which is another area we need to protect. So packages and Terraform modules. And DNS and TLS would be the other things we need to be careful and guard against. So for packages, one improvement we've done this year, for example, is move away from our own package hosting solution, which was built on S3 and Cloudflare and some internal CI processes that push packages there. What we did was we moved that over to Cloudsmith. So Cloudsmith is now the hoster of that, and they, that's their full-time job, is keeping their package repository system secure and hardened. So I feel that's alleviated some of that concern. Now, I don't recall if they're doing scanning of the packages that are there based on known CVE lists or things like that, but that would be a low-hanging fruit for them to start to offer that. That would fit the model of what I'm overall trying to do for Cloud Posse. It doesn't solve the problem about our credentials that we have in CI that we need to upload those packages there. We need processes in place to regularly and automatically rotate those, and that's actually in our Jira to get to, and I want to do that. The other thing is our packages and signing, and this is our strategy to managing packages is quite different than what a lot of distributions do. We are only distributing shrink wrapped is maybe the wrong word, but we're only redistributing binaries that exist already. So we pull them from the source of every host, but we aren't checking any signatures there because there isn't a consistent process for doing that. I think for the packages out there that offer signatures for their binaries, we should start adding that, and we have a centralized place to start doing that, but that's on the list of things to do. All right, so that's package. Hosting for Terraform, this is where Chekhov as an open source, but Bridge Crew as a commercial offering comes in, and this is really why I want to introduce it ASAP for our ecosystem. So what Bridge Crew does is they look at every commit, and then they look for violations against any of the many known standards for best practices for how this stuff is. I don't know if they look for like attack vectors like local exec, which is a problem in Terraform, and making sure that maybe that's something we need to have a policy on. That any commits that include local exec, we would have a separate policy. We could implement that quite easily using conf test. Conf test is one of the tools that implements OPA and the Rego language, I guess, then to express that. So you could have a conf test rule that if something has a local exec in it, that it fails, and then you need a special kind of approval to merge that kind of pull request. We almost don't. This would work pretty well for us because we, as a rule, we almost never use local exec because it breaks the whole model of Terraform. Like suddenly you depend on local tools installed and certain paths and things like that. Then there's the Docker attack vector, and very similar to everything I said with packages. So more shift left security, more scanning there, more automatic updates on that front. But this whole system works on a chain of trust. What happened to Solarwinds, and their customers trusted the upstream there, and then updates would be secure. Auto updates through RenovateBot of third-party packages has the same vulnerability or attack vector, and I don't have an answer for that.
I was gonna say, Eric, that like your answer to all of that was like, oh, I'm using this SaaS company or this open source tool, and it's like a catch-22 almost, because like every single time you introduce something like that, then like for every Prometheus image that you pull down, everything, there is that inherent trust, and with that inherent trust, you're accepting that risk as well.
Yeah.
Like you
This whole
need like a
system is based on
completely air gap solution where like every image that you use is like has like a security engineer that signs off on it, and it just won't work. Like I think the SolarWinds hack is like you can't really protect against that in a real world.
So this has been also a little bit SolarWinds counter argument to like the whole open source thing, right? I heard argued that like their whole thing has been like you can't trust open source, all these attack vectors, and then what happened to SolarWinds, right? I guess the benefit here is that this was out in the open with more people looking at it, and it's tragic, it's unfortunate, but I'm really impressed by how quickly some of these things have come up as a result, possibly, of the number of people using it. There's this diagram, though, I don't know, it was shared in our random channel at some point, where like the modern state of the internet is like, these this mountain of tools and dependencies all leaning on this one toothpick maintained by one little developer who's working part-time, right? And everything's only as robust as the weakest link. Yeah. I think that the gist of it, though, Brian, though, is having multiple, like having enough of these layers that one of them triggers, one of them catches it, one of them prevents it, and so even having multiple security tools working on it. I would love, vendors in this space. I think a great way to get their name out is to approach popular open source projects and offer, free scanning in exchange for free publicity. And this is, I think, what's nice about what's happening in with our Terraform stance. I think it'd be pretty interesting if a vendor came out with, for example, on the Docker space, something we could trust, doesn't have the supply chain problem. I say that ironically because we can't escape it, but that did add scanning to the images, that we could trust this one service to pull our images. They cache them, so we don't have to worry about upstream vulnerability, reliability. As new vulnerabilities come out, those images, if they had them, can be flagged, or we can have policies in our organization for how to handle that. And then doing that for everything we depend on, all artifacts, for example, packages. And guess what I just described? That's Cloudsmith. That's kind of like the angle they're taking. I don't think it's all there yet, but this is strategically what they're working on. and why I like it. They also offer a Terraform package, Terraform module hosting for private registries. So you can use that. Thanks, Brian. Anybody have other answers? Better answers? GitHub is doing more on this front too, right? So GitHub is offering free security scanning for open source projects. GitHub is doing credential scanning free for open source projects. I believe they're expanding that to private repositories soon. I just saw that somewhere in my newsfeed.
I've
There's
been getting a
AWS.
lot of Qualys emails about migrating from SolarWinds.
migrating from what?
SolarWinds. They're sending
Oh,
a lot
okay.
of marketing emails
Oh,
about
dude, this is gotta be.
free migrations from SolarWinds.
Yeah.
We don't use SolarWinds here, but it's just
Yeah.
funny.
Yeah, GitHub's pretty quick with their security scanning. I like committed a Google API key once by accident. I committed Twilio creds once, and it was like pretty quick where they're like, hey, did you mean to do this?
That's cool. Very cool. Yeah, they share a lot of the, how do you say it? It's not that it's their responsibility, but as a result of being such a public platform, they can really do a lot to alleviate these problems. Then it's also all these vendors, right? They need to have tighter integrations to the platforms we use. There should be tighter integrations with like Docker Hub, for example, and GitHub or any CI platform, where these rotating secrets that we can't be putting that onus on every developer out there, on every small organization. They either don't have the sophistication, or they don't know what they don't know, or they don't have the time. There's so many reasons why these things happen, and it's not anybody's fault really. It's hard stuff to do. The whole, it makes me appreciate more the whole AWS IAM architecture, and how they make short-lived tokens very easy. Cool. Other talking point is we are growing, we are hiring. We work with subcontractors exclusively. Right now, we're focused on looking for US-based contractors with full-time availability, senior level experience, Terraform, Kubernetes, Helm, and lots of SaaS experience. Possibly working with Datadog would be nice to have. Working with OpsGenie, nice to have. Things like that. So if you're interested and you hear this, feel free to reach out to me on our Slack team, slack.cloudposse.com. Again, slack.cloudposse.com. And look forward to setting up a time to talk with you. So, questions. So there's a good tool or a good question. Oh, that was brought up by you. Got it. So actually, this ties right into a lot of the other stuff we were talking about today. There were good tips by others in the community of the general approach for release notes. Historically, release notes were a pain in the butt. There was a changelog file like this in the source control, and you had to enforce that developers were keeping that up to date. And while there's something purist about it that I like, and it's in the source control in one place, sometimes it's just not, it's hard to enforce systematically. On the other hand, GitHub has the concept of releases. GitHub releases augment tags. So tags still exist, but the metadata around a tag is managed by GitHub. So what we did earlier this year was roll out or release drafter, which is one of the many options out there. We looked at a few of them, but release drafter seem to be the most robust to me in functionality and the way we wanted it to work. So with this, what you get is the ability to have a GitHub action start your releases as drafts. Like here's a upcoming draft release, and every pull request that is merged is automatically just tacked on here to this release. So here, the last pull request we merged was 664 to update the version of AWS Cloud. The next PR we merge to master would just be tacked on here, and then when we want to cut a release, we can just do that. We have the ability to edit this before we actually cut that release. Now we're doing this for Geodesic, which has a different release process than our Terraform modules. For Terraform, it's a different story. Look, we have too many modules to manage a cohesive release strategy of 150 repositories. We have a simpler approach. Hey, everything merged to master, it's either a bug fix or we bump the minor release. Even bug fixes can be breaking for some people, right? And our whole philosophy on when to do, how to do releases is documented on Cloud Posse docs. And if you go to our, contributors FAQ here, we have kind of what is our versioning strategy, and I can share that in our Slack channel here. But just post this here. And then I'll post an example of how to use Release Drafter the way we use it for our GitHub modules. So for our GitHub modules, for our Terraform modules, we cut a release on every merge to master, and it takes care of all the semver for us.
And it takes care of the semver because you're following the conventional commits, correct?
Yeah, well, it's very configurable. This is what's really cool. So there are a lot of rules for it, for how you want to do it. If you have strict discipline on how you write your commits, you can do it that way, I believe. But we run an open source community with 1,000 different ways of doing commit messages and stuff like that. We can't enforce convention, but it supports the ultimate escape hatch. Look, label your pull request. Is this a fix? Is it a bug fix? Is it a hot fix? Whatever. So here are all the words for labels that match a patch. Here are all the words that match a minor, and here are all the words that match a major. And based on that, it's going to do this semver calculation. You have full control over the template and what that looks like, and more powerful things like, I'll show you what we're doing for Geodesic. Our release draft is a little different here. Here, this is how we do it, where each pull request is tacked on to the existing release that's in draft mode, and you can configure that. You can even have regular expressions that rewrite that stuff after the fact. So this is the ultimate escape hatch, so you can make your releases look really nice. So
cool. Thanks for sharing.
Yeah, I'm pretty happy about how this turned out. This was the effort of Jeremy on our team. I'll share this configuration as well. Cool. Any questions on how to manage change logs with GitHub Actions and release drafting, or other tips or tricks to do this?
I'm good for now. Really appreciate the info, especially for the folks that respond on the channel. Really appreciate it. Did not even know about conventional commits. That was totally new to me. I'm gonna have to stop typing in fixes 1, fixes 2 every time I commit now.
Yeah, no, that is nice. Conventional commits. That's a good tip. But it does require everybody to kind of play along with that.
Yeah, well, I'll have to see what kind of buy-in I get. I'm kind of tempted to see if I feel like there might be a project where you could fail people, like fail the commit.
You could fail the commit probably, yeah.
Yeah, and then it's just over time you'll get it right.
And I bet there are pre-commit hooks for this as well. So
yeah, that's what I'm thinking. Something along those lines. Yeah, I'll have to kind of play around with it in a test repo, see what the full pipeline looks like and what makes sense for my team. But yeah, really appreciate you guys sharing. It's very helpful.
sounds good. All right, so we are almost out of time for today. The last topic I really wanted to talk about was asked by Andre almost a month ago. I'm not sure. Andre, are you on the call today? I think what I'm going to do for this this question is I have a whole slide deck I recently prepared for another customer on how to improve handoffs and why handoffs fail. As a DevOps accelerator, this is something that is near and dear to the heart, and I really want to, get feedback from everyone on how we can improve this process, but also share what we've been doing to try and improve the handoff process. So Andre's question was scrolling up here. Yeah, here. This is back on December 2nd. Basically, if you've been a contractor, you've been working on DevOps, and you've implemented some solutions for the customer, and then you might have been surprised when the customer still paid you for all the work, expressed that they were happy, and didn't use it, and still went back to their old habits of doing things. So why does that happen? Why do things fail? I want to talk about that some more. Maybe next office hours, which would be not next week. We'll do it the week afterwards. So with that said, why don't I begin to... Well, are there any last questions before we wrap things up today? All right. Well, with that said, I want to wrap things up. Thanks everyone for participating. I was blown away. We're a day away from Christmas here, and already we have 25 people on the call today, so that was pretty awesome. I want to encourage everyone to subscribe to our YouTube channel if you haven't already. This call today will be posted there, as well as all of our past office hours segments are also found on YouTube. We also have a podcast. We syndicate this there, so if you prefer to listen in your car or on the train, that's a great way to consume office hours. If you haven't joined our Slack team, I want to make sure you join our Slack team. Go to slack.cloudposse.com. Again, slack.cloudposse.com. And look forward to talking to everyone next week. We will be having office hours as usual, as well as all of next year. So look forward to an awesome 2021 if I don't speak to you guys before then. Have a great rest of your week. Talk to you soon.